You ever notice how, at some point, you just stop posting? Not dramatically. No, I'm taking a break from social media announcement. No black and white quote about peace and self-growth. You just disappear. One day you were sharing what you ate, where you went, who you were with. And then suddenly, nothing. People scroll past your name and think, they've been quiet lately. And what's interesting is, that silence is rarely accidental. Because when someone stops sharing personal updates, something psychological is usually shifting underneath. Sometimes quietly, sometimes painfully, sometimes powerfully, and maybe it's not someone. Maybe it's you. Let's talk about what actually happens in your mind when you stop sharing your life, and the different types of people this silence creates. First, there's the person who stops sharing because they're tired of being perceived. You know this feeling. Every post feels like a performance. You start imagining how people will interpret it before you even hit upload. Is this cringe? Will they misunderstand this? Do I look like I'm trying too hard? So eventually you stop. Not because nothing is happening in your life, but because too many people are watching. Psychologically, this is about cognitive overload and social self-consciousness. Your brain is exhausted from constantly managing how you appear in other people's minds. You don't want validation anymore. You want peace. So you keep moments to yourself. The coffee tastes better when no one knows you're drinking it. The trip feels more real when it isn't documented. And if this is you, you might notice something strange. Your life doesn't get smaller when you stop sharing. It actually gets quieter and somehow deeper. Then there's the person who stops sharing because they're healing. This one is subtle. They used to post a lot. Thus, feelings, emotional updates, sometimes too honest. But at some point, they realize every post reopens a wound. Every reaction becomes another thing to process. So they pull back. Not because they're over it, but because they finally understand that not every emotion needs an audience. Psychologically, this is emotional boundary formation. The brain is learning that safety doesn't always come from expression. It sometimes comes from containment. You start journaling instead of posting, thinking instead of explaining, processing instead of performing. And here's the ironic part. People might assume you're doing great because you're quiet, but really, you're just doing the work privately. If this resonates, ask yourself, are you hiding, or are you protecting something that's still fragile? Then there's another type. The person who stops sharing because they've outgrown the audience. This one hurts in a different way. You change, but your environment doesn't. Your interests shift. Your humor evolves. Your values mature. And suddenly, the people who used to get you don't anymore. So you hesitate. You write a caption, then delete it. You think, they wouldn't understand this version of me. Psychologically, this is identity realignment. Your inner self no longer matches the social mirror around you. Instead of shrinking yourself to fit, you choose silence. And silence becomes a filter. You don't stop sharing forever, you just become selective. Only certain people get access now. Only certain spaces feel safe. If this is you, it doesn't mean you're becoming distant. It means you're becoming intentional. But here's the twist. Not all silence is peaceful. Some people stop sharing because they feel invisible anyway. They used to post. No response. No engagement. No real connection. So eventually the brain learns. Why bother? Psychologically, this connects to learned disengagement. When effort isn't rewarded, motivation fades. You stop sharing not because you don't have anything to say, but because it feels like no one is listening. And over time, that silence can leak into real life. You speak less. You explain yourself less. You assume you don't matter as much as you actually do. If this feels close to home, here's something important. Lack of response does not equal lack of value. Sometimes the room is wrong, not your voice. And finally, there's the most misunderstood type. The person who stops sharing because they're becoming self-directed. They don't need witnesses anymore. Their motivation shifts from external to internal. They don't need likes to confirm progress. They don't need comments to validate growth. Psychologically, this is autonomy development. A sign of emotional maturity. They're still living, still feeling, still evolving. They just don't need to narrate it. And the funny thing is, this silence often looks like confidence. Not loud confidence. Not look at me confidence. Quiet confidence. The kind that doesn't explain itself. So what actually happens when you stop sharing personal updates? You reclaim mental space. You renegotiate boundaries. You redefine who gets access to you. Sometimes you heal. Sometimes you retreat. Sometimes you grow. And sometimes you're doing all three at once. The real question isn't why you stopped sharing. It's what changed inside you when you did. So ask yourself, which silence feels most like yours? The tired one? The healing one? The growing one? Or the invisible one? Maybe. What would happen if you shared again, but only where it truly matters? If this made you reflect a little longer than expected, you're not alone. Stick around. There's more psychology hiding in everyday behavior than we realize.